ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती वृत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Yes, so we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 3 and Chapter 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. So we are at text 16. Jnanam yadetaddatmatama sadeva sa traikalikam sthirachaрешванувартитаншанта tam jiva karma padavi manuvartamanas tapatayo pashayamanaya vajam bhajem. Yes, translation.
Prabhuji, we are halfway through with this translation and purport. Should I just read the remaining part?
Yes, Suruji, no problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first paragraph we have completed.
Yeah. First paragraph we have completed. Okay. So I continue with this knowledge.
Yes.
This knowledge cannot be imparted by anyone other than the Supreme Lord or his representative. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya instructs Rupa Goswami that the living entities wander in life after life, undergoing the miserable conditions of material existence. But when one is very anxious to get free from the material entanglement, he gets enlightenment to a spiritual master and Krishna. This means that Krishna, as the Supersoul, is seated within the heart of the living entity, and when the living entity is serious, the Lord directs him to take shelter of his representative, a bona fide spiritual master. Directed from within and guided externally by the spiritual master, one attains the path of Krishna consciousness, which is the way out of the material clutches. Therefore, there is no possibility of one's being situated in his own position unless he is blessed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless he is enlightened, With the supreme knowledge, one has to undergo the severe penalties of the hard struggle for existence in the material nature. The spiritual master is therefore the mercy manifestation of the Supreme Person. The conditioned soul has to take direct instruction from the spiritual master, and thus he gradually becomes enlightened to the path of Krishna consciousness. The seed of Krishna consciousness is sown within the heart of the conditioned soul, and when one hears instruction from the spiritual master, the seed fructifies and one's life is blessed. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So here Prabhupada is explaining that this knowledge can not be imparted by anyone other than the Supreme Lord or his representative. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 19th chapter, 151 verse, there is explained that Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavana Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paye Bhakti Lata Bij. So uh, in one's heart there is a Paramatma, situated Paramatma, which is acting as a Chaitya Guru. If one is a sincere in following his duties or desires to associate with the devotees, or taking Lord's Prasadam, or associating with Vaishnavas, then the Chaitya Guru directs him to the path for to the bhakti path. That is, by the mercy of the Krishna, he can be come in contact with the spiritual master, and then spiritual master give the instructions, and if one sincerely follows those instructions, then he is directed to the uh, bhakti process that is given here in this paragraph. This means that Krishna as the super soul is seated within the heart of the living entity, and when the living entity is serious, the Lord directs him to take shelter of his representative, that is bona fide spiritual master, and directed from within and guided externally by the spiritual master. One attains the path of Krishna consciousness, which is the way out of the material clutches. Here, in that verse also, Srila Prabhupada quoted the story of Narad Muni. Just like Narad Muni, when he was very young child, and his mother was serving some Vaishnavas, and because he was busy in service of Vaishnavas, and he got the association, the opportunity to serve those Vaishnavas, he became a Narad Muni in his next life. So sincere soul gets the opportunity to come in contact with the Vaishnavas. Like in Prabhupada, that purport, Prabhupada lastly mentions that this Krishna consciousness, what we have established, is giving the opportunities to different souls which are wandering here and there in this whole Brahmanda. But if they are very fortunate and they are sincere in following the instructions, then they will get the opportunity to get out the clutches of this material entanglement and go home back to Godhead. This is mentioned here. And the spiritual master is there for the mercy manifestation of the Supreme Person. The conditioned soul has to take direct instructions from the spiritual master, and thus he gradually becomes enlightened to the path of Krishna consciousness. The seed of Krishna consciousness, it is mentioned here because everybody is having this seed in his heart. Seed of Krishna consciousness is sown within the heart of the conditioned soul. And when one hears instructions from the spiritual master, the seed fructifies and one's life is blessed. Like there is a description in Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita 22.107, the Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabuhannaya Shravanadi Suddha Chitte Karaya Udaya. So there is a dormant devotional service to Krishna is there in within everybody's heart, every living entity's heart. Simply by associating with the devotees or hearing their good instructions and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that dormant love for the Krishna is awakened in one's heart. So, and in this way, one can acquire the seed of that devotional service by that is Guru Krishna Prasada by Bhakti Lata Beach. So we'll go to the next. verse 17. देहि अन्य देह विवरे जथा जठाराग्निरनाशृंग विनमुत्र कुप पतितो भ्रश तप्त देह इच्छन् इतो विवसितुं गणयन् स्वमासां निर्वास्यते कृपान् धीर भगवान कदा नु. Yes, translation.
Translation: fallen into a pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body scorched by the mother's gastric fire, the embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prayers. O my Lord, when shall I, a wretched soul, be released from this confinement? Purport: the precarious condition of the living entity within the womb of his mother is described here. On one side of where the child is floating is the heart of gastric fire, and on the other side are urine, stool, blood, and discharges. After 7 months, the child who has regained his consciousness feels the horrible condition of his existence and prays to the Lord. Counting the months until his release, he becomes greatly anxious to get out of the confinement. The so called civilized man does not take account of this horrible condition of life, and sometimes, for the purpose of sense gratification, he tries to kill the child by methods of contraception or abortion. Unserious about the horrible condition in the womb, such persons continue in materialism, grossly misusing the chance of the human form of life. The word Kripana Di is significant in this verse. Di means intelligence, and Kripana means miserly. Conditioned life is for persons who are miserly intelligence or who do not properly utilize their intelligence. In the human form of life, the intelligence is developed, and one has to utilize that developed intelligence to get out of the cycle of birth and death. One who does not do so is a miser, just like a person who has immense wealth but does not utilize it, keeping it simply to see. A person who does not actually utilize his human intelligence to get out of the clutches of māyā, the cycle of birth and death, is accepted as miserly. The exact opposite of miserly is udara, very magnanimous. A brahmana is called udara because he utilizes his human intelligence for spiritual realization. He uses that intelligence to preach Krishna consciousness for the benefit of the public, and therefore he is magnanimous. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So fallen into the deep pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his body scorched by the mother's gastric fire. The embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, "Oh my Lord, when shall I, wretched soul, be released from this confinement?" In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that we have just 2 days before we have seen the position of a living entity in the mother's womb. Just like a room is filled with different substances, the drum of different substances, because the urinary bag is below the uterus, just the side of the uterus is the large intestine, which contains the stool of mother. Then blood is there, different discharges are there, pus is there, and in that situation, the living entity in the in the womb of the mother is hanging upside down for 9 months and 9 days. So after here is mentioned that this in this horrible condition of his existence, he prays to the Lord, counting the months until his release. He becomes greatly anxious to get out of the confinement. So sometimes it happens that we have seen that is called as the meconium, some part of the stool of his own, the living entity's own stool is going in his mouth in the mother's womb. And when the baby borns, that child is having that stool in his mouth, that nurse has to clean up that mouth of the baby. That is called as the meconium. We have seen that so many times after delivery. That in that horrible condition, he counts the months and prays to the Lord, "Hey, my Lord, give me the release from this wretched from this miserable condition." And unserious about this, but sometimes for the purpose of sense gratification, the living entities or those people who are civilized, they are using the different methods and killing that baby in form of a contraception or abortion in the name of the sense gratification. So unserious about the horrible condition in the womb, such persons continue in materialism, grossly misusing the chance of the human form of life. Because this human form of life is very much important to go back home, back to Godhead. Because in other forms of living life, they cannot understand the bhakti process, devotional service. The word Kripana Dhiha is significant in this verse. Dhi means intelligence. So unless and until human life is so important, that unless and until we are not using our intelligence to understand who am I, where from I came, where I have to go, what is the aim of my life, what is the relationship between me and God, those basic questions we have to understand with using our intelligence. And if we are not using our intelligence, that is called as a uh, that is called as kripana, miserly person. And if we are using, that is called as exactly opposite to miserly is udara, very magnanimous. A Brahmana is called is udara because he utilizes his intelligence for the spiritual realization. And we have to use this human form of life for the devotional service. So we'll go to the next verse. येने दृशिं गतिम् असौ दशमास्य ईशा संग्रहीतः पुरुदयेन भवादृशेन स्वेनैव तुष्य तुष्यतु कृतेन स दीननाथः को नाम तत् प्रतिविज्ञाजलीन् अस्य कुर्यात्. Translation.
My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy, I am awakened to consciousness. Although I am only 10 months old, for this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with folded hands. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, intelligence and forgetfulness are both supplied by the super soul, sitting with the individual soul within the body. When he sees that a conditioned soul is very serious about getting out of the clutches of the material influence, the Supreme Lord gives intelligence internally as super soul and externally as the spiritual master, or as an incarnation of the personality of Godhead himself. He helps by speaking instructions such as Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is always seeking the opportunity to reclaim the fallen souls to his abode, the kingdom of God. We should always feel very much obliged to the personality of Godhead, for he is always anxious to bring us into the happy condition of eternal life. There is no sufficient means to repay the personality of Godhead for his act of benediction. Therefore, we can simply feel gratitude and pray to the Lord with folded hands. This prayer of the child in the womb may be questioned by some atheistic people. How can a child pray in such a nice way in the womb of his mother? Everything is possible by the grace of the Lord. The child is put into such a precarious condition externally, but internally he is the same, and the Lord is there. By the transcendental energy of the Lord, everything is possible. Rishna?
Can't hear your voice, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So in this uh, situation, miserly situation in the mother of the womb of the mother, the living entity is continuously praying to the Lord for his causeless mercy. And for this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of God, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with the folded hands. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining the purport that there is, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, intelligence and forgetful. Jnanam apohanam cha. Lord is telling that I am the intelligence giving and forgetfulness giving. I am the supplier of that thing in the living entity's heart. So in that condition, in the womb of the mother, there is intelligence and there is a consciousness in the living entity that he can pray to the Lord until he comes out of the womb of the mother. And that's why experiencing that situation, we all have experienced that. Experiencing that situation, living entities again and again crying and with his folded hand, he is praying to the Lord for his causeless mercy. And the Lord is so merciful that he is very much seeking the opportunity to reclaim these all the fallen souls to his abode. And he is so much merciful that outside uh, he has given his instructions through Bhagavad Gita. But one has just to follow the instructions so that he can get the association of devotees and he can come to the spiritual world, and he can get the happy condition of the eternal life. And yeah, so it is given that Lord is there is no sufficient means to repay the personality of Godhead for his act of benediction. Lord is so much merciful and he is giving that benediction to the living entities in the form of his instructions, Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we just simply feel gratitude and to pray to the Lord with folded hands. This prayer of the child in the womb may be questioned by some atheistic people. How this child can pray in such a nice way in the womb of the mother? But it is mentioned that everything is possible with the grace of the Lord. Yes. So we'll go to the next one verse. पश्यते अयं धीशनय ननु सप्तवद्रिः शारीरके दम शरीरी अपरः स्वदेहे यत् सृष्टयासं तम अहं पुरुषं पुराणं पश्ये बहिर्हृदि च चैत्यम् इव प्रतीतम्. Its translation.
The evolutionary process of different types of bodies is something like that of a fructifying flower. Just as there are different types,
Hare
there
Krishna
are different
Mataji.
stages. Hare Krishna
We are
Prabhuji,
on
am I
Mataji, this is
audible?
different
text 19.
translation.
Text 19, Mataji.
19.
Okay, 1 second, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
Translation.
tried. Oh, sorry, translation I missed. I'm sorry. The living entity in another type of body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body and by whose grace I can see him within and without. Purport. The evolutionary process of different types of bodies is something like that of a fructifying flower. Just as there are different stages in the growth of a flower, the bud stage, the blooming stage, and the full-fledged, fully grown stage of aroma and beauty. There are 84 lakh species of bodies in gradual evolution, and there is systematic progress from the lower species of life to the higher. The human form of life is supposed to be the highest, for it offers consciousness for getting out of the clutches of birth and death. The fortunate child in the womb of his mother realizes his superior position and is thereby distinguished from other bodies. Animals in the lower animals in bodies lower than that of human being are conscious only as far as their bodily distress and happiness are concerned. They cannot think more than their bodily necessities of life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But in human form of life, by the grace of the God, the consciousness is so developed that a man can evaluate his exceptional position and thus realize the self and the Supreme Lord.
Yeah,
The
we will
word
stop here as it's a big purport. So here the living entity in another type of body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body and by whose grace I can see him within and without. In purport, Srila Prabhupada is explained that this human form of life, getting the human form of life, is the evolutionary process, because the soul, once it comes in the material world, it it is evolutionary process from one form to another form of the body he is receiving by the Lord's mercy, as per his karmas, just like a growth of a flower in the different stages, the bud stage, then blooming stage, then full-fledged and grown up stage of aroma and beauty. Similarly, there are 84 lakh spaces of the body's gradual evolutions. So this systematic progress is there happening in this material world, like from an ant to the insect to crawling animals, like then animals in the water, then on the earth, like that. This evolution of the bodies in the material world is going on, and it is said that at last, after crossing the 84 lakh species, like 4 lakh species in the 84 lakh are the human form of life. So after crossing almost 80 lakh forms of the bodies, then one gets the opportunity in the human form of life. So this human form of life is supposed to be highest in consciousness than other living entities, other bodies, because it can, because of his super consciousness, human super consciousness, he can get out of the clutches of the material world and from the birth and death also. And fortunate child in the womb of his mother realizes that superior position of this body, human form, than other bodies. Even it is mentioned here that animal bodies, like which are lower than the human form of life, they have the limited consciousness. They are just limited to their bodily distresses and happinesses, like eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They are concerned with the ahara, nidra, bhayamaithunansha. Samanya mitat pashuvinnaranam dharmo hi tesho adhiko vishesho. That living entity knows that dharmo hi tesho adhiko vishesho, dharmene hina pashubhi samana. So living entity, human in the human form of life, can, by the grace of the Lord, grace of the God, he can develop his consciousness and he can pray to the Lord, and he can engage in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead, and he can be take out himself from the clutches of this material world. This is explained by Srila Prabhupada here. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktarun ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.